Hello, everyone. For a while now, my daughter and son-in-law have been wanting a chipper shredder so they can make bedding for their chicken coop. A good friend of mine just happened to have one tucked away in his barn in Wisconsin and said they could have it. He said it's been there for about a decade now, but ran just fine the last time he used it. Well, you know what they say, ran when parked. So I finally got a chance to get up to his place for a weekend of deer hunting and decided to take the opportunity to grab the chipper shredder. Thankfully, it wasn't too buried in his barn, just a few small things in the way and a couple of wheels half buried in the dirt. I brought a small toolkit and some gas and some oil with me, just in the off chance that I'd strike gold and this thing would fire up right away. But I wasn't going to spend a whole lot of time messing with it because we had a lot better things to do that weekend. Unfortunately, and as I fully expected, it didn't start. Now, I could have just given it to my daughter and son-in-law as is. My son-in-law is more than capable of working on this thing all by himself. He's probably more capable than me. But they have two small children and a lot of projects in the pipeline already. I didn't feel like handing them another one. So I loaded it on the trailer and brought it home. Now, a lot of folks buy used small engine equipment at auctions, garage sales, and rescue it out of barns like I did this thing. And we don't often have the luxury of seeing, if something's going to run first. Once we buy it, there are some very basic steps that we can take to determine if what we have, can be brought back to life or if it's better just stripped down for parts. So come along and let's see which category this chipper shredder falls into. Okay, we're back home in the garage. Let's take a walk around and see what we've got. This is a nice little Snapper chipper shredder. It's got four wheels on it and a tongue on the front so you can hook it up to your garden cart or your ATV and tow it wherever you want it to go. It's a model SG8000. I'm not sure exactly what that means, how Snapper used to designate their models, but like I said, it is a chipper shredder. It's got the hopper here for shredding. It's got the hopper on the side for chipping. And it's ran by a Briggs Stratton 8 horsepower, 4-stroke engine. The nice thing about these Briggs Stratton engines is they put their codes right on the fan shroud. So with the code here on the right, we can see right away this engine was made April 24th, 1991. So we know how old this thing is. And there's a centrifugal clutch off the back of the engine. And I checked that out. That seems to be okay. I don't think we're going to have an issue with that at all. But the issue we have right now is the engine won't start. So let's go ahead and walk through the steps of what we're going to do to see if we can get this thing to run. Now, the first thing you want to do before you even try to start an engine, and this is something I already did up at the barn in Wisconsin, is you want to check the oil. So this engine has two oil fill and checks, one on this side and one over on the other side of the engine. You just take a flat blade screwdriver, pop that loose, and the oil should be right up to the top, and it is. And the oil actually doesn't look too bad. So as far as motor oil is concerned, we're in good shape. If it runs, I am going to do an oil change on it because I'm sure this oil is pretty old. And when I go to do that, assuming I can get it running, I'm going to drain it out here, fill it there, and then we'll be in good shape. Well, the first thing we want to do before we get any further into this engine, and this is something you really want to do before you buy one of these things, is see if the engine's locked up. So this one's got a recoil starter, so you just grab the handle. Engine's not locked up. We should start feeling some compression here. And we do. So we know the engine's got compression. It's not seized. That's always a great sign. Next thing I usually like to do is look inside the gas tank and see how bad this is going to be. A lot of times if these things are stored in barns, somebody leaves a half a tank of gas and now you got nothing but varnish in here. You probably saw earlier on the video I put some fuel in this. I did check the tank up at the barn. It was bone dry, which is always a good sign. However, the gas cap's broke. So if this thing runs, I am going to have to buy a new one of those. Next thing I like to do is pull the air filter off, see what we're looking at here. Because a lot of times, these things are all gummed up, or you've gotten bugs or something else has gotten in there and decided to make it their home. And the filter doesn't look too bad. Could stand to be changed. If I get this thing running, I'll put a new one in. You probably didn't notice since earlier in the video when I was up in Wisconsin, there were actually 2 mud dauber nests in here I had to take care of. But let's take the air filter off completely and just make sure there isn't a whole bunch of garbage down in this air intake tube or down at the base of the carburetor. We'll just pull this off. We'll have a look down there. Yeah, it looks fine. And I don't see a whole bunch of garbage inside the air filter. There's no reason we need to put that thing back on. So we're just going to take these parts, set them out of the way. Choke is moving freely. Throttle's moving freely. Looks like all the governor linkage back here is moving okay. So that all looks good. Next thing I want to do is pull this spark plug off. See what this spark plug looks like. See if this is any good or not. So if the spark plug's trashed, then we're going to have to replace it. It's used, but it doesn't look too bad. That's a champion plug. That's a good thing. So let's go ahead and put the plug back in. We've kind of given an external check on everything. Everything externally looks good. So you got to remember, these engines, it's real simple. You need air, fuel, compression, and spark. We know we got compression, and we feel like we've got good compression. We have fuel in the tank. Spark plug looks good. But let's go ahead and put a spark tester on there. Now let's see if that spark plug is going to work or not. Okay, I have the spark tester hooked up. This is just a cheap little $5 Harbor Freight spark tester. You could probably get them at Amazon or any auto parts store. And I shut the garage door so this will show up a little bit better. So when I pull the recoil starter, if we have spark, you should see an orange light in there. Let's see if we've got anything. As you can see, we do have spark. So it's time to move on to the next step. Okay, so we know we have compression, we know we have spark, our airflow is unimpeded, and we got fuel in the fuel tank. So next thing to do is open up the fuel shutoff valve. Give it a few seconds to fill the carburetor. Set the choke. Let's see if it's going to start. Nothing. Not a pop, not a putt, nothing at all. But just because we have fuel in the tank doesn't mean it's actually getting into the carburetor or getting into the engine. It's a notorious problem for engines that have sat for a long time is these carburetors get gummed up. So we need to confirm if we've got a fuel problem or not. The easiest way to do that, just get a can of carburetor cleaner, spray it right into the air taker, into the carburetor. And if you've got a fuel problem, it should pop off. Let's see if it's going to start now. Well, that settles it. We have a fuel problem somewhere. Somewhere between the gas tank and the carburetor, we have an issue. So let's dig into it. Let's find out what the problem is. Okay, we have the fuel shut off, and let's take this clamp off. Sometimes these hoses come right off. Sometimes you have to get a little forceful with them. There should actually even be fuel in this as soon as I take it off, but let's find out. If I break this hose, I do have more. I'm seeing gas dripping out of there. I'm guessing that the shutoff in the line is okay. Yeah, there's gas in the fuel line. Let's just double check this really quick. Yep. That's working fine. We don't have an obstruction in the fuel line or in the fuel shutoff valve. So it appears that the fuel shutoff valve, well, it is working okay. Let's set this little gasoline aside. We know that's fine, so we know problems in there. So let's go ahead and get that carburetor off. So the carburetor's off the machine, and I was able to confirm off camera that the float bowl was full of fuel. Fuel was getting into the carburetor. Float bowl works fine. There's an easy way to do this is you can put a tube or something onto here and set the carburetor up straight, and you should be able to force air into this pretty easily because the valve will be open. And then if you flip the carburetor upside down, the float will shut this valve off and you shouldn't be able to put any more air into there. So I confirmed that was fine. So what I've probably got is a plugged up jet, or plugged up passageway in that carburetor. That's not what I wanted to see, but it's pretty common. My fear is if I pull this carburetor apart, I'm going to break this gasket and then I'm going to have to buy a kit. So what sometimes works, and it's what I'm going to try first, is I'm going to pull the main fuel adjustment and the idle adjustment screws out, blow a bunch of carburetor cleaner through there and see if I can clean out whatever passageway is gummed up in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these all the way in. I'm going to count how many turns out they are, write that down so I can put this right back to the same setting on both of these, blow it out, and let's see how that works. Okay, for the main jet, I'm just going to try to take the whole thing off the bottom of the carburetor. Oh, this might be our problem. Got a bunch of rust right there. That's a fair amount of gunk in there. I'm guessing we've probably found our issue. We pull the idle off and see where that's at. I want to count the turns first. There's a half. There's 1 1 1/4. Okay. I'm going to write that down. All right. Let's see what this looks like. That looks good. I'm going to blow some carb cleaner through that anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and step out in the driveway, and I'll be right back when I'm done. Well, folks, this looks like as good a place as any to stop episode 1. When we come back, let's see if cleaning this carburetor out is just what this engine needed. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you on another episode.